Want to speak real Hebrew from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at HebrewPod101.com.
Shalom, אני Anna. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Aleph Bet Bekalei Kalut, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph Bet. Over the next 20 lessons, you'll learn everything there is to know about reading and writing Hebrew. By the end, you'll even be able to read some portions of the Hebrew Bible. Are you ready? So let's start. בואו נתחיל. Hebrew has only one alphabet of 22 letters, so it's super easy. Once you know these, a few variations and a simple vowel system, you will be ready to read one of the most ancient languages in the world. As you may know, the Hebrew writing system is written from right to left. At first, this may seem intimidating or confusing, but you'll get the hang of it in no time. Let's start with the first letter, Aleph. What sound does Aleph make? In Hebrew, the name of each letter starts with the sound you use to pronounce it, which means the sound of Aleph is A. It is handwritten like this. Now, in Hebrew, there are always two ways to write a letter: the written way, which is used in everyday handwriting, and the print way, which you will see in books and newspapers, on signs, and so forth. This is the written way. The print version looks like this. When Israeli kids first learn how to write, they use this print typewriting. It's useful, and as you'll see later, very easy to learn both versions of every letter. Let's do it again. Here's the written form. And here's the print form. You can now write your first letter in Hebrew. Good, let's move on. The second character is Bet. The sound of Bet is B, and it looks like this. Pay attention to the dot. It has to be in the middle. The print version is like this. If you leave out the dot, Bet becomes Vet. The sound of Vet is V, but we don't count Vet as a separate letter in the alphabet. So far, you've studied two letters of the Hebrew Aleph Bet, and you've learned three sounds. Want to write them once again? Let's do it. Okay, here is Aleph. This is handwritten. Aleph in print. And now Bet, handwritten. And Bet in print. Then Vet, handwritten. Vet in print style. Did you know you can already write a word in Hebrew? This is Abba. Abba in Hebrew means father. It is the first word every Israeli baby says. These are the simplest phonetic sounds. Try it out. Abba in handwriting. And now the print style. Abba. Great job! In this lesson, you learned the first two letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph, Bet. You also practice your first word, in both print and writing styles. Before we move on to the next lesson, I want to introduce the Hebrew vowel system. Among 22 Hebrew letters, there are 5 vowels, one of which we learned in this lesson. But beside those 5, there is another vowel system called Nikud. Nikud are a series of dots or points that are used to indicate vowel sounds connected to consonants. Once you have more experience reading Hebrew, you may not see these symbols so often in native texts. But if you can master them when you start learning Hebrew, it will make learning Hebrew much faster and easier. The nikud take the form of dots, lines, and combinations of the two, and are written in, under, on top, or beside consonant letters. Sound complicated? Don't worry, we'll take it slowly, and by the end of this series, they will seem easy. Now it's time for Yana's insights. Have you been writing as you watch? Hope so. There is no better way to master the Aleph Bet quickly than to write them yourself. I also recommend that you make flashcards for each letter and study them whenever you get a chance. Do you know how to write dag, the word for fish, in Hebrew? It will definitely come in handy when you read a menu in Israel. And you learn that and much more in the next lesson. Lehitraot! Shalom, ani Yana. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Aleph Bet Bekale Kalut, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph Bet. In the last lesson, we learned the first two letters of the Aleph Bet. Do you remember them? In this lesson, we'll move on to the next couple of letters and the first nikud symbol. So let's start. בואו נתחיל. The third letter of the Aleph Bet is Gimel. The sound of Gimel is G. Let's first see how to write it by hand. Gimel in handwriting. And in print it looks like this. Gimel. They look quite different, don't they? But the good news is that you already can write another Hebrew word, gag. This means roof in handwriting. Gag. And in print it looks like this. Gag. Here you may be a little confused. If you were to see this word written, you might want to read it as gug. There is no vowel sound. In Hebrew, the vowels are often not written. You would know that this word is pronounced gag because it has been taught to you before. And this is why the nikud is so important. The nikud shows learners of the Hebrew language what vowel sound is used in words, but don't rely on them too much. As you get more experienced with Hebrew, you should be able to remember how to read words, even if the nikud is not attached. Now it's time to introduce to you the first nikud. Remember, nikud are small points and lines that are placed in, under, on top, or beside consonants. The first one has the sound a, just like Aleph. This is kamatz, and it looks like this. And it's always written right under the consonant letter. Let's write roof a couple more times while pronouncing its sound, a. So for example, gag in handwriting looks like this. Gag. And in print, gag. Also, the word Abba has kamatz under two of its letters. Abba. And in print version, Abba. So now you can read and write two words in Hebrew using the full vowel system. You can adjust the sound of the letter Gimel by writing a comma right here. Now it is read J, as in the name George. First the Gimel, and then the comma on the upper left side. And in print it looks like this. So now let's move to the fourth letter, Dalet, with the sound of D. Dalet. That's it, just one curve for the handwriting. And Dalet in print looks like this. Dalet. So let's make another word with the letter Gimel and Dalet. Here, dag means fish. This will come in very handy whenever you are in a restaurant. Let's write it. Da, g. And now in print. Da, g. Now it's time for Yana's insights. Don't get lost in studying and forget the real world. Find Hebrew letters around you. Don't see any Aleph Bet letters around you? Go to HebrewPod101.com and check out the Aleph Bet transcripts for every lesson dialogue. You may not be able to read them all yet, but you can get a feel of how the Hebrew letters are used in real life. Do you know what ahava means? It's the most romantic word in Hebrew. You will be able to write and read this and much more in the next lesson. See you then. Lehitraot. Shalom, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Aleph Bet Bekalei Kalut, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph Bet. In the last lesson, we learned the third and fourth Hebrew letters, Gimel and Dalet. Do you remember how to write fish? And what about roof? In this lesson, we will learn how to write the word for love in Hebrew. Are you ready? So let's start. בואו נתחיל. The fifth Hebrew letter is Hey. Hey sound is Ha, but it can also sound like Ah. You will see how it changes in a second. Let's first write it in handwriting. Hey. The print version is very similar. Hey. Make sure to keep Hey curved while handwriting, but use sharp angles in print. So, as I mentioned, Hey can sound like both Ha and Ah. The word ahava uses it in both ways. When Hey appears in the end of the word, it will always sound as Ah. Ahava is love in Hebrew. Let's try to write it down. Ah, pronounced Ha. Remember the sound here is V, so we don't need a dot of bet. Pronounce Ah. Let's do it once more in handwriting. Ahava. Ahava. Isn't it a beautiful word with a beautiful curved shape? Now let's do it in print. A-ha-va. So if you want to add the full nikud for this word, we need to use a new nikud symbol, patach. Just like kamatz from last lesson, patach has the sound of A. Now remember, when you write in modern Hebrew, you don't need to use the nikud system. It is there mostly for you to read, especially when learning new vocabulary, or if you want to study the Hebrew Bible. Now let's spell ahava with the full nikud. Ahava. A-ha-va. Ahava. Here's the print version. Here you saw how the letter Hey can sound in two different ways. So you already know 5 Hebrew letters and several words. Don't forget to practice the characters in both handwriting and print. Now it's time for Yana's insights. Doesn't Hey from this lesson sound like Hey in English? When you say hello to your friends? That's exactly the sound for the Hebrew letter Hey. Now you can think of the letter Hey when saying hello to your friends and memorize it better. In the next lesson, we will see how one word can be pronounced in 3 different ways in Hebrew. It may sound confusing, but remember, you'll have the nikud to help you. See you next time. Lehitraot. Shalom, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Aleph Bet Bekalei Kalut, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph Bet. In the last lesson, we learned to write the most important word in Hebrew, ahava, the word for love. Do you remember the nikud for ahava? If you are not feeling confident about it, review the last lesson before continuing on from here. In this lesson, we will learn one new Hebrew letter and 3 more nikud. Are you ready? So let's start. בואו נתחיל. The 6th letter is Vav. The sound of Vav is V or O or U, and it's written like this. That's it. Vav has only one stroke from top to the bottom. The print version is the same for Vav, with only a small difference. In Hebrew, Vav is not only the name of the character, it's also a word by itself. It means a hook. Doesn't Vav look like a hook? You can write this word like this. It's just the letter Vav 2 times. If you want to add nikud, it will look like this. Now we move on to the next nikud symbol, chirik, with the sound I, like in C. It's just 1 dot under the letter, I. Now you can write a very common name, one that belongs to the second and perhaps most famous king of the ancient kingdom of Israel, David. It's written with 2 Dalet and 1 Vav. The nikud here is important, otherwise it can have different pronunciation and meaning. Let's write this word. David. And now in print. David. The next nikud for this lesson is shuruk, with the sound U. This is how you make Vav sound like U. For example, if we take the same letters from David and instead of chirik we add shuruk, it will be dud, electric water heater. Perhaps now you can appreciate the power of learning the nikud when you're first studying Hebrew. Let's write this word. Dud. And now in print. Dud. Notice how shuruk goes to the left of the Vav. Seem complicated? Don't worry, we will review them all at the end of this lesson. But not before we will learn the last nikud for today. Cholam maleh, with the sound of O. This is how you make Vav sound like O. Let's write this. D, O, D. Dod. And now in print. Dod. Notice that cholam maleh appears above the Vav. Now, shuruk and cholam maleh are only written with the letter Vav and not with any other letter. Chirik, however, will appear below other letters. Now let's see all the last 3 examples together and make sense of them. First, we had David, Dud, and Dod. Now let's have a short quiz. I'll show you the nikud symbol next to a letter and you have to pronounce its sound. Ready? A, U, I, O, A. Now it's time for Yana's insights. Since you will not see any nikud in modern readings in Israel, you will have to guess by the context of the sentence which pronunciation and meaning it has. It all comes with the experience of studying Hebrew vocabulary. Another tip is when writing the letter Vav, it is important to keep the length of the stroke inside the frame. Otherwise, it becomes a different letter. But that's for later. So in this lesson, we studied the letter Vav and 3 nikud in Hebrew: chirik, shuruk, and cholam maleh. In the next lesson, we will learn 2 more Hebrew letters, zayin and chet. See you then! Bye! שלום, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Aleph Bet בקלי קלות. the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph Bet. In the last lesson, we learned the 6th Hebrew letter Vav and 3 new Nikud. Do you remember how to write David and uncle? What about electric water heater? In this lesson, we will learn 2 new Hebrew letters. So let's move on with the 7th letter Zayin. The sound is Z. Let's write it in handwriting first. Does it look familiar? You might be reminded of the 3rd letter Gimel in handwriting. Yes, you are right. They are the mirror images of each other. But don't get confused between them. Gimel faces this way. Zayin faces this way. Okay, how about the print version? Fortunately, this one will be hard to confuse with the print version of Gimel. Even though they are pretty different in print, make sure you don't write Zayin and Vav in too similar a way. Let's see the difference. Vav, Zayin. Zvuv is a fly in Hebrew. Zvuv. And in print, Zvuv. You can easily remember this word since the fly makes this sound. Zvz. Let's move on. If you write Zayin with a comma on the left side, it will sound like zh, as in the word journal or collage. First you write Zayin and then add the comma on the upper left side. In print, usually the letter J is used for foreign words like jaquette, a jacket, journal, a journal, and so forth. Now we move on to the 8th letter, Chet. This has the sound of Ch, and it is written like this. For the handwriting, keep the corners round. And in print, Chet. Almost the same, right? Always the print version will have sharper corners than the handwriting version. Ach is a brother in Hebrew. Ach. The pronunciation is important. Try to pronounce it more glottally from your throat. Chava is a farm. Chava. Here the handwriting and the print versions are almost the same. Let's write them. Chava. In print, Chava. Now it's time for Yana's insights. When writing Hebrew Aleph Bet, always start from the top, both in hand and print writing. In this lesson we studied 2 new Hebrew letters, Zayin and Chet, with a variation of J. Did you know that you have already mastered a third of the complete Hebrew Aleph Bet and the Nikud system? Good job! But how do you write good in Hebrew? In the next lesson we will learn this and 2 new letters plus 1 Nikud. See you then, להתראות. Shalom, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Aleph Bet בקלי קלות. The fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph Bet. In the last lesson, we learned the letters Zayin and Chet. In this lesson, we will continue with the next 2 letters and learn another Nikud. Are you ready? בואו נתחיל. The 9th letter of the Aleph Bet is Tet. It has the sound of T. Let's write it. The handwriting of Tet is... This letter is a little unusual, in that you need to start from the bottom up. And in print, Tet. If you round the corners of the print version, it will be just like the handwriting one. Tov is good in Hebrew, in the masculine form. T O, V. Tov. And in print, Tov. In the feminine, you write Tova. And in print, Tova. Now, let's move on to the 10th letter, Yod, which has a Y sound. It is probably the simplest letter. Yod, just like a little comma on the upper right side of the frame. And in print version, Yod. Almost the same, just with a little angle. Yad is hand in Hebrew. Yad. And in print, Yad. Now we've completed 10 letters of the Aleph Bet. You're almost halfway through. Can you believe it? Before finishing up, let's take a look at another nikud. Shva. Shva has no sound. It is a silent vowel. It just keeps the original sound of the consonant. Like in Ach. Ach is a brother. Ach. And in print version, Ach. We will see more examples of Shva in the next lessons. We are ready to move beyond words and write a phrase. Ach Tov is good brother in Hebrew. The noun comes first and then the adjective. And in print, Ach Tov. Nice job. Soon you'll be able to write whole sentences. Now it's time for Yana's insights. Before starting the next lesson, try to write all the letters from Aleph to Yod several times in a row, while loudly pronouncing each letter. In the next lesson, we will learn the 11th letter, Kaf, and after that review half the Aleph Bet. How many can you remember? See you in the next lesson. להתראות. Shalom, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Aleph Bet בקלי קלות. The fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph Bet. In the last lesson, we finished up the first 10 Hebrew letters of the Aleph Bet and 6 nikud symbols. Can you remember how to write good brother in Hebrew? I'm sure you can do it. Now let's move on to the 11th letter, Kaf. The sound of Kaf is K. Let's write it. Kaf. Just half a circle to the right, starting from the upper left side and going down. The print is the same but with sharp corners. Kaf. Kaf actually is only pronounced like K when it has a dot inside. Just like Bet only has the B sound when it has this dot. Without the dot, it sounds like Ch. Chaf. A good example is the word kochav, kochav, which means a star. K, O, Cha, V, kochav. And in print version, kochav. Be careful though, the letter chaf takes a different shape when it is written at the end of the word. It looks like this. Chaf sofit. The print is quite similar. Chaf sofit. Now let's have a short review of the first 11 letters, the first half of the alphabet. Be ready with a pen and a paper. I'll say the letter out loud, starting from Aleph. and give you a second to write it down, first in handwriting and then in print style. Then I will write it myself, first the handwriting version and then the print. Are you ready? Let's go! Aleph, Aleph, Bet, Bet, Gimel, Gimel, Dalet, Dalet, Hey, Hey, Vav, Vav, Zain, Zain, Chet, Chet, Tet, Tet, Yod, Yod, and Kaf. Kaf. Good job! Now it's time for Yana's insights. How is your Aleph Bet learning going? If you're having a tough time with some characters, how about checking them out on the Aleph Bet chart in HebrewPod101.com's Learning Center. Don't just get stuck in one learning method. Mix it up for the best results. In this lesson, we studied the letter Kaf with its variations and did a review of the last 11 Aleph Bet letters. Next lesson, we will continue with 2 more letters. Do you know what Lama means? So why not join me in the next lesson? See you then. Bye! Shalom, ani Yana. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Aleph Bet Bekale Kalut, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph Bet. Last lesson, we reached the halfway point of the Hebrew Aleph Bet and did a review of what you've learned so far. Did you practice them all? So I guess you're ready for the next 2 letters that we will learn in this lesson. They are Lamed with the sound of L and the letter Mem with an M sound. So let's start writing. Lamed looks different in hand and print writing. So pay attention and remember to pronounce the letter while writing. Lamed. Lamed. Lamed looks like a loop, doesn't it? The word loop in Hebrew actually starts with lamed. Lula'a. Can you read this word without nikud? Lula'a. Loop. Easy to remember, right? In print, it looks like this. So how loop will look in print? Yeled is a boy in Hebrew. Yeled. And in print version? Yeled. If you wondered how we make the sound of in Yeled, you're paying very good attention. there is a new nikud there called segol, and it looks like this. You say it with the sound e. So let's write yeled with proper nikud. Yeled. And in print version, yeled. Another example using segol is kelev. Kelev is a dog. And in print, kelev. Could you read kelev without the nikud there at all? Kelev. Great. The next letter is mem, and it has an sound. In handwriting, mem looks like this. Mem. And in print, mem. Mem changes when at the end of the word, just like in the previous lesson, chaf. It looks like this. Mem sofit. And in print, mem sofit. You might say it looks like a square. Maim is water in Hebrew. Here you can see both variations of mem. Maim. And in print version, maim. So how would you read this word? This is melech. Melech means a king in Hebrew. Melech. Me, le, ch. Here is Yana's insight. Have you been checking out the Aleph Bet transcripts for HebrewPod101.com's lessons? I bet you can read a lot more now than you could after lesson 2. Go back and browse the Aleph Bet transcripts for a lesson or 2, and you'll be amazed at how far you've come. Just think a little more and you'll understand the whole thing. This lesson will learn the letters lamed and mem, and the nikud segol with the sound of e. In the next lesson, we will have a little quiz, so practice your Aleph Bet and the nikud. See you then. Lehitraot.